Look, I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of people, certainly in this country, especially parents, are up to there with the big tech firms seemingly able to carry all kinds of illegal and, frankly, dangerous content without any kind of real comeback. Well, those big tech firms are now going to have 3 months from today, from 7 o'clock, actually, from 15 minutes ago, to root out illegal content from their sites. They've got to get rid of it. That's the first step to keeping children safe online. The regulator, of course, is Ofcom, and it says that it's going to hold these companies to account. It's really going to put their feet to the fire, because if they fail, they're going to face massive fines.
Well, we are joined now by Roome, whose 14-year-old son, Jools, died after being found unconscious in his room in April 2022, and she thinks Ofcom isn't doing enough to address the real issues. And we're also joined by Ofcom's Chief Executive, Dame Melanie Dawes. Good to see both of you this morning.
Good morning.
Let's come to you, first of all, Dame Melanie. So the first phase starts today, doesn't it? And as I understand it, you're looking at illegal harm, so things like terrorism, rape offences, child sex exploitation, online grooming and harassment. So what actually is happening today and how quickly can you tackle it?
Well, today is a really big moment because we finalised the first detailed rules on, as you say, making sure that that illegal content is not just freely available on our feeds anymore. And what that means is that the clock now starts ticking on the action that the tech industry needs to start to take. From March, they're going to have to put in place the measures that we are setting out today to keep us all safer. And if they don't, then we'll be taking enforcement action.
So what are your measures? So what will change?
So what's it going to mean? So it's going to mean that, first, they've got to change the way those algorithms work, so they screen out the illegal content, the things that you were just talking about. When things slip through the net, they're going to have to take it down quickly. We want children's accounts to be private, so they can't be found by strangers who they don't know, who only wish them harm. We want it to be much, much easier to complain, and for tech companies to persuade their users that actually they're acting on complaints. So there's a whole range of different measures, and there'll be more to come in the new year as well. This is just the start.
Why do you think these companies have been so unwilling to do anything? They've really, really dragged their feet. They've been full of words and hot air, but they've done absolutely nothing, really, to deal with this problem. Why do you think that is? What's the profit margin for them? What's the profit motive for them in carrying this kind of dreadful material?
Well, look, I think it's because we haven't had any regulation. They're global companies. There hasn't been any action in the US. Most of them are based in America. But fundamentally, they do make their money from engaging us all online. The more time we spend, the more advertising revenue comes in.
Clickbait.
Yeah, and so safety hasn't been a priority, but that changes today.
Can you go after them if they are based in America? Does Ofcom have that kind of power?
Yeah, we do. We can charge fines up to 10% of their global turnover, so that is huge. And, you know, I hope that's the last resort, to be honest. What we're saying to the industry now is, you know, you've got a choice. Either start to make these changes, and I really think we're going to be looking back on this in a few years' time and going, how did we tolerate this for so long? So come into line with the rules, or you will hear from Ofcom with enforcement action starting in the spring.
Okay. Ellen, you are passionate about this because you have felt the pain that all parent doesn't want to feel, the loss of your beloved son. What do you think of these measures, and what more should be happening?
I think from what you're saying is great and it sounds really positive. I think from a bereaved parent's perspective, it's a shame we're not doing more together. So that, for example, this is illegal issues, not harmful issues, that my understanding. And then the Children's Code, when that comes out, so it's just a phase, isn't it, stage. And I think everybody had just hoped that you would come out with this and enforce everything all in one go. And then come down hard on regulators to actually make a difference.
And why has that been? Why have you not been able to do that?
Yeah, so we've got to... Basically, you're going to hear a lot more from us in the new year. So in January, we're going to come out with rules on the age checks that we expect so that we know where children are, because you can't protect them unless you know where the kids are. And then in April, we'll finish our Children's Code. And that's about the wider experience of teenagers, particularly on social media, where at the moment, pornography, suicide and self-harm material, violent content, dangerous challenges, all of that is freely available. And again, that needs to change. So in April, that will be the moment when we're finalising those rules.
I mean, you're clearly working on something that sounds very positive. I suppose what Ellen might think is, gosh, all the children that could come to harm between now and April.
I know, look, we've all waited such a long time, you know, for this. And to be fair, the UK has actually introduced laws faster than nearly every other country. And in some countries, there's nothing to protect kids. So we are moving here. But we've I think, gone very fast this year in Ofcom over the past 12 months to finalise the detail. The rest is coming through in the new year. And then we have been preparing all year for the enforcement action. So we'll be quick out of the traps on that.
Let's, Ellen, I mean, your poor boy, 14, lost his life because you think of something that he saw online, some kind of challenge, some incredibly dangerous thing. What would you like to see if you... I mean, you're sitting next to the person here now who can make a difference. What would have helped prevent that?
Well, I don't know it was that, so I've always been very careful that I don't know it was social media. My gut feeling was there's nothing offline, so my gut feeling is it's something he's seen online, but I don't have the right to see his data. And I think that should change. I think, why have we got children agreeing to terms and conditions at 13 years old, and they're signing basically legal contract on social media sites, which I don't understand why a child would be able to. Then, I mean, we don't read them when you click you've read your terms and conditions, and I don't think children do.
There's two really big questions off the back of that. Yeah. The first one is, why can't a mother like this access what her son was looking at? So she finds out what really happened, if anything, but probably did. She can find out. Why can't she have access? Why won't the big tech firms let her look? That's the first thing. And secondly, how do you enforce age enforcement? How do you stop a 13-year-old lying and saying that they're 18? What do you do?
So, look, on the first of those, I think the government's looking at that very actively right now. It would need a change to the law to require them to keep the data so that you can then have access to it. And coroners are now able to request it. That's changed. And
so
Ofcom helps make sure that coroners get the data that they need.
It helps support what she's asking for.
Well, I think the government is looking into it, isn't it?
But it won't help me. It will help newly bereaved parents. So the data, so the data bill will help newly bereaved parents, so the data can be released to coroners.
But not historic
because Jools has had his inquest, I don't have access to that, so I'm applying to the High Court to redo his inquest. We spoke before about this, it's going to cost me £86,000 to get to the High Court to get my child's data.
And that's ongoing, that
deal. For me to find out.
Is there something flawed about a 13-year-old signing anything to do with data? Shouldn't it be that, you know, somebody over 18, ideally a parent or a carer or a guardian, has to be part of that?
Well, look, there are some companies now, Meta's done this, for example, where for younger teenagers, they can't be on social media without having parental consent. So it's, you know, some of this is beginning to move. But in terms of the regulation, what we are absolutely requiring is proper age checks to Richard's questions earlier.
They're very difficult to do, aren't they?
Look, the technology is getting better and better. Right. So what we'll be firming up in January, and we'll be coming out on this in another month, is that if you've got children on your platform, then you're going to need to have a proper, effective age check at aged 18, and that can use a biometric check, so it can scan your face and guess your age. And actually, that technology is getting really good now. There are a number of other things that you can do. And a lot of people say, oh, what about privacy? What about, you know, data storage and stuff? That's important. We think it can be done. You know, if you get practical about this, an awful lot can change.
But that's for 18-year-olds. What about the 13-year-olds?
That's at 18. Well, then the question of age 13 is really important. And again, you know, we are absolutely clear that if platforms have got a minimum age of 13, which most of them do because they're required to under a different bit of law, it does get quite complicated, exactly, data protection law, then they need to be following their own terms. But to be honest, that is not quite as strong in the Online Safety Act at the moment. Our primary focus is aged 18 because we think all teenagers need a different experience.
And just coming back to a broad question to finish with Dame Melanie, obviously the tech companies are speaking soft, honeyed words to this initiative. Yes, of course we want to cooperate. Yes, of course we'll do whatever is necessary. Well, we've seen where voluntary corporations got them up to now, got us up to now. Do you think, actually, is your gut that you're going to have to wield the big stick, actually inflict these fines before they actually get the message?
For some companies, yes, we're gearing up for that. But I hope that many in the industry, and, you know, there are some people who do want to change. But I hope that many in the industry will do this the easier way, which is by making the changes. We're seeing some good engagement, but next year is all about action, and that's what we're looking for.
Well, good luck with it. I think in terms of the initiatives in principle, you've really got everyone behind you. Who wouldn't want to see this?
We've just got a couple of mentions, haven't we, from social media?
Well,
you sort of summarised it anyway,
A spokesperson for Snapchat has been on to us. They've said, we're supportive of the goals of the UK's Online Safety Act and its focus on child safety. TikTok told us, we've been supportive of the Online Safety Act since its inception. Good, well, let's see what happens in 3 months.
I guess the truth is whether they then deliver.
Changes.
Yeah, now, look, if you've been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, you can find advice and support at itv.com/helplines. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.